Before we get started today, I want to say thank you for every single like, comment, recommendation, and a very special thank you to my listener support group. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End Podcast, please consider checking out the listener support tab on our channel's anchor link. Without you, we would not be able to continue the great work we're doing with these conversations, breaking down boundaries and helping heal each other by sharing our stories, our trials, our tribulations, and how we process them. Let's jump straight into this episode.
Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions or, if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Deep End Podcast. I'm so excited for today. I am personally a fan of the message that she provides to this world. Miss Suzanne Thistle is joining me all the way from across the nation. She is found on Instagram at Naturally Sober, and she's also an author of not one, not two, but now, as far as tomorrow, 3 books. So I'm so excited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I like
Absolutely.
your plan.
Thank you. So why don't we start from just the very, very beginning? What was it like for you growing up?
Wow. Very dysfunctional, to be honest. My father is a recovering alcoholic. And so, but the first, I think I was 16 when he got sober. So the first 16 years of life, he was drinking pretty heavily. And my older brother and sister drank heavily, and then it was me. And my older brother taught me how to smoke pot and drink, and so I followed his footsteps. He's now gone directly as a result of alcohol and other drugs.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks. It's a little easier to talk about it as time goes on, but as I mentioned to you before we started, I'm so exhausted from traveling and not the greatest time. Normally I try and dress up and look a little better, but it's been a long day. It's been a long few weeks. But in any event, so most of my childhood was my mother trying to raise 6 of us by herself, and it was just, she couldn't keep an eye on us. She didn't know where we were, and so it was really crazy. And then after my father, I was brought up on Cape Cod, and then he moved to New Hampshire with his wife. He married and was married for, I don't know, 47 years, something like that. But they moved up here to New Hampshire, where I am now. And they built a home, and she, believe it or not, had 6 kids. So he had 6 kids, she had 6 kids.
Cheaper by the dozen.
Huh?
Cheaper by the dozen.
Yeah, it was crazy. She I don't know how she did it. Well, she smoked cigarettes and drank coffee. She didn't drink a lot, but somehow she managed. But we would come up on summers, and then eventually he decided, my brother started getting into trouble, so he took him up, and then my sister got into trouble, so he took her up. And then, of course, the next time he came down, because she was complaining about me, he said, if I come down, I'm going to take the rest of them. And my younger sister decided not to come, but the rest of us went up. And and it was just a little bit more. He was still drinking, but we had, her, because she wasn't drinking. I think I've seen her drink maybe 2 or 3 times in life. I mean, alcoholic, like get drunk. But she would have breakfast every day at a certain time, lunch, dinner. It was more scheduled, more, but it didn't stop me from drinking. So
Yeah.
in any event, I drank and got into drugs and did that all through high school. And one of the key things that I think about when I decided to write this book was because of my experience in high school and my parents. That's really cool that I'm just kind of realizing that now on your show. That's great. But it was insane, and nobody knew what to do. I mean, I think nowadays people know a little bit about what to do, but back then nobody knew anything, and they just thought, there's this theory. Well, they got to want help to, they got to want to get help, right? That's not the case. They don't have to want to get help to get sober, and I hear that a lot, and it drives me crazy, because there are tools that therapists use and other lay people can use to help people want to get help,
100%.
but nobody knew anything. Yeah. And nobody knew anything back then. And so my hope is that parents, addicted children, and hope, my book, that's it, is on Amazon. Before I forget to say that. I hope that helps people, especially with the insane amount of overdoses that are happening right now. It drives me crazy. I hope that this book will provide answers to the parents out there who have a kid who's struggling, and not say, they'll eventually get it, they'll want it. That doesn't have to be in the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is definitely needed. You're absolutely correct on that. There is no book that I've came into contact with that is a outline of just someone else's experiences. And that's something I try to captivate. That's something I try to create in this space where we're having right now. There's this simple conversation. What tools do you have that you're going to share with the rest of the world so that they have a new tool in their tool belt? And your book is a pretty solid, bang out example of that, of just that. I didn't know what it was like to grow up, especially as a child, dealing with parents who were suffering from alcoholism, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, suffering from absent parents, suffering from anxiety, depression, any of these things. There's not really a book on how to do it. There's people say to this day that there's no book on parenting. There's a bunch of books on parenting, but there's so many different situations. You never know what you're going to come in contact with. So I think this is really awesome that you have time to put that together.
Yeah. Well, it's exhausting.
I can imagine.
Writing it isn't a problem, but making sure it's edited appropriately, and I send it to editors and I get it back and there's still mistakes, and I'm like, and then trying to make it work on Amazon is a whole nother thing. And it's a lot. But what I did was, I guess I also have to say, because you asked background too, is I've had a niece who overdosed. That was 2016. And a couple of years before that, she died. Beautiful, beautiful young woman. And a nephew who got hit by a drunk driver and died. He was on life support for, I think, 7 months or so. It's insidious. It's so prevalent right now in our society. And we have white collar drug dealers, we have blue collar drug dealers, we have the alcohol industry, and everybody's targeting that young mind that doesn't have logic yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need, parents are the key. Parents are the key. You know, they need, if my parents, when I was in high school, knew, hey, like in Massachusetts, you can section somebody. You can have somebody court ordered into treatment if they're abusing substances and putting themselves at harm.
Hmm.
Someone I know close to me just had her brother get sectioned, and she's like, oh, he's trying to make us feel bad for doing it. I'm like, look, you probably just saved his life. You know, we don't have that in New Hampshire, where there was a bunch of us treatment providers who wanted it, and then there were other people who didn't want it, so it didn't go through.
Mm-hmm.
But these are just some of the tools that, you know, had that been available when I was growing up, who knows what my trajectory in life would have been, you know. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm glad I've done what I've done and been where I've been to be able to write books like this, to get them out there to the mass, you know.
I think it's definitely needed in
Yeah.
society in modern day. You know, I work in the Seattle area. Thank God I don't live in the Seattle area, but it is crazy. It is literally insanity. Just yesterday, I was working on an escalator and I saw somebody take a reusable grocery bag, put it over their head, and smoke fentanyl in it at the top of an escalator where women with their young kids,
Mm-hmm.
dads, adults of all shapes and sizes were coming up. People who are going on a field trip are walking through, and it's a rampant issue in our area, and it seems like there is no solution to it. The
Right.
solution is that they've thrown safe injection sites at it. They've thrown more taxpayer dollars at it. They've thrown all sorts of stuff at it, but it is literally not even a misdemeanor at this
Right.
point. For the police, they won't even arrest you. They'll just say, "Hey, go," and they'll show up in a public place where human beings are trying to live with fentanyl. Fentanyl
Right.
is the most dangerous substances on as far as the drug market goes. But not even talking about that, they were not allowing law enforcement to even pursue people who were suspected of a DUI. I've lost people who I serve with in the military to DUIs. I've lost my own brother to a DUI. You know, these DUI crashes are devastating, and the only one that suffers is the entire community. It's not
Right.
just one person. It's
Right.
not just, you know, somebody's mother, sister, cousin,
Right.
auntie. Everybody's going to be suffering from it.
Right, right. And what we've done, the government has done, is all the money is going towards, you know, treatment and here, there, and everywhere. We're not hearing about social detriments of health, you know, we're not hearing about housing for them. I mean, I was just watching the news tonight and they were talking about putting more tents out. People are putting tents out so people can go stay in those tents. Well, you know, in some countries, they provide housing for these folks, you know, so they don't have to sleep in the street. Yeah, if you want to drink or use or whatever, but at least you'll have a warm place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, you know, back to parents, I think that we haven't looked at parents. We've put money everywhere else, but in and it's not working. If you look at a chart from back in the 90s up till now, it's just consistently gone up. And we've had drugs come over the border before. We've had, you know, different avenues of, you know, where it's coming. And war on drugs has been going on forever, but it keeps going up. The overdoses keep and deaths keep going up. And so I guess, you know, my hope is that people reading this book, you know, especially parents, will be able to take it and utilize it in their everyday life with their child. There's a lot. What I did was I interviewed people all around the globe, experts and support folks who talk about what their program is like. And I researched some of that and put that in there. And I also, one of the other things I did was I asked people who are in recovery who were able to give me stories about quotes about, you know, what they wish their parents knew or what they think parents should know. So those are in there too, which is really cool. You know, so it's kind of a combination of my knowledge, global knowledge from experts, and people who have experienced it themselves and what they want parents to know.
That's
So
excellent.
yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. And it's interesting because I had two folks who did some better reading for me, and I'm thinking, boy, it's a small book, but it took me a year and a half to put it together. So what I did was I made it extremely easy to read. You can just go in and choose whatever chapter you want to, and loaded it with resources, books to read, podcasts, Facebook pages, groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups for parents of addicted children. So podcasts, and so hopefully it'll make a dent in some of this that's going on out there.
Absolutely. And I think you hit it right, the nail right on the head. Having firsthand experience and consulting others with their experiences is definitely something that can we need to look at this problem just like we should look at every issue. How can we help, first of all, and who else has experience to come together and consolidate our knowledge and deliver a message that's going to be effective to whoever receives it. Sometimes you need to let go of the person you are to become somebody else. You need to let go of the things that have harmed you in your past, mistakes you made, lessons you've learned from them. Behind every single blessing is a lesson, right? And so when I peel back the layers of the great things I've experienced in my life, I always find that the pathway leading up to it might not be very pretty. There might be a lot of bumps and bruises that I've accrued over time, but every single step that was necessary for me to tell my wife's little brother, hey, you might not think that this is important, but you really need to apply yourself, young man, because you have an opportunity right now. You're surrounded by love. Go be athletic. Go play the sports. Do great things. Because if you don't right now, you're going to look back in your life with regret, like me. Go do it. Go be you. And I think it's just so important. The message that you're looking to provide isn't just one point of view. It's multiple. And that's where beautiful knowledge is shared.
Right. Yeah. And I also spent 20 years in the addiction profession. So, I started out as a counselor and worked up to managing substance abuse services at a mental health clinic, and then moved on to do clinical directing and eventually executive directing of a couple of places. And right now I consult with addiction treatment programs. I help them design programs, or help them with insurance or budgeting or planning. And I teach at the college. I teach about drugs at the college. One of the things, my other book, Chem-Free Sobriety, you mentioned earlier, I use that as a text in my class. And it's 101 stories of people all over New Hampshire in recovery who choose to live abstinence-based recovery. And the kids in my class love it, which is cool. I think probably there's some shock value there, but I used to have people come in and share their experience with using and getting sober and staying sober. And but when COVID hit, I was like, okay, this will be good. It'll still be people, and they liked it. So I'm like, okay, well, just keep using it, because I do it all online. It's an asynchronous class, so I do it all online. So every semester, at the beginning of this semester, one of the students said, I really love your book. My mother was addicted to, I forget, she was on Suboxone. And had to go to treatment to get off it. But she used to call it the evil drug because it made her mother act crazy or something. I don't know. But anyways, it was so nice to hear from her. and hear her say, you know, she's been sober for a long time now, and she got off all drugs. She hasn't had any drugs or alcohol in I don't know how many years, but you know, that's a cool thing, you know.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. You know, that's the effect we want to provide in life. As a, I think any parent would want their child to look at them with adoration. I know that me walking into being a father this next year, it's essential to me that I set an example of somebody who's working on themselves, someone who understands they're not perfect. I'm starting to practice giving myself some grace and saying, you know what, as long as you tried your damnedest, that's as good as you're going to be able to do. You're not going to always achieve every amount. You know, perfect effort is not perfect outcome, and giving yourself some grace and saying it's okay. You know, I'm going to forgive myself for my shortfalls, but I'm going to work at them still. I'm definitely going to work on these shortcomings and strive towards this next level. I think it's essential. It's essential. And any parent would be excited about their kid being proud of them. I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad's been sober, I don't know, 40 something years. And you know, it's funny, I was having a conversation with my daughter this morning, who's been in recovery a couple of years, and she's in her 30s. And I said, as I'm talking to her, I said, "Oh, I sound like my father." She goes, "I know, that happens to me all the time. I'm talking to the kids. I'll say, it sound like my mother."
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely look forward to moments like that where we can pass knowledge to the next generation and have our lessons affect them as well.
Mm.
Something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, chem-free sobriety. What is that what does that idea entail?
That's a good question, because some people say, well, does that mean we can't be on an antidepressant or this or that and the other thing? So really what it means is you don't take any medication or other drug that is is something that can be abused.
Mm,
uh, that's often abused. So because we're too vulnerable, you know. I'm also in recovery. Did I say that? I've been in recovery for 37 years. This month, 37 years, 29th.
that's
Um,
phenomenal.
yeah. Um, and one of the things I know, like if you know, I've been operated on a few times, and you know, I let people know I'm going in for an operation. This is, you know, you know, my husband is also in recovery. He, you know, this I've had an awful year. This is probably why it took me a year and a half to do this book. I broke my arm in February, and then I got my hand all cut up in October. So I was in a cast the beginning of the year and a cast at the end of the year.
Mm,
Um, but the first, when I broke my arm, they gave me a narcotic, and I'm like, look, I don't even want to touch this stuff, you know. And I don't even know if I took any after I left there. If I did, it might have been one that night. And of course, they give you like 10 of them. Um, but you know, give it to somebody else to manage. And the doctors know, you know, look, at I'm in recovery. I don't want to get addicted to this crap, you know. Just want you to know that. So because, you know, even though, you know, there's a real strong harm reduction movement going on, and um, back when abstinence based was the main drive in our country, we had very little overdoses. Um, does that mean I don't believe in harm reduction? No, we've always done harm reduction, but it was never the first choice of that to take. It was
mhm.
always, if they refuse to want to get help, then we'd go that way. But and I'm pretty outspoken about this. So, but you know, I remember having this 19-year-old who came in when I was doing treatment. counseling, and he was 19 years old, and he's like, they told me I have to be on this for life. He was on methadone. I'm like, what?
That's
I mean,
insanity.
these are the messages that the young folks are getting, especially like, you can't possibly not take any drugs. So the long answer to your question, but is just, not taking, uh, not not taking drugs or medication that is mind altering, that is one that is more likely to be abused. There's many medications that people take for diabetes or blood pressure, or antidepressants that that don't get abused, but when you're talking about stimulants, especially if you were abusing cocaine, that's probably not a real safe drug to be taken. um, we've turned into a medicated society. There's a pill for everything.
Mm.
And so when I go to the doctors and they find out I'm not on anything, I don't take any medication. If I do try and heal myself, it's usually naturally with something natural. Not to say that there aren't natural, like mushrooms are natural and I don't
Yeah,
take them, but uh,
absolutely.
you know what I mean? So
Well, there's
that
so many healing properties that are coming out of Colorado right now with veterans, especially veterans of the Iraq War, doing different studies about how mushroom technology can help severely decrease suicidal ideology. Um, it can severely decrease horrible PTSD.
right.
I have a friend, a personal friend of mine. I'm not going to go name his name, but he has been a part of
Study.
these processes, and wow, to see life in his eyes for the first time in years, it was like
Wow.
an overwhelmingly I'm not going to cry today. I promise
Ah.
myself it's an overwhelming emotional experience to see somebody with life back in their eyes
Yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
taking something that is not an addictive substance.
Right.
Suboxone, methadone. I've heard plenty of bad stories about them. I don't think that it's necessary. I'm not an expert, so this is not health advice. I don't think as a human being it's not necessary to classify ourselves as broken. We might be a little bent,
Right,
not
right.
broken. We can recover. We have
Yeah.
so many shining examples of it. You're a shining example of it. We don't need to necessarily water down life. We just need to learn how to live it.
Right, right. And we don't, I remember somebody saying to me one time, well, um, there's not enough money to help somebody with the detriments of health. And when I say that, I mean medical, dental, eye, housing, those things that don't have anything to do with doing alcohol and drug counseling, case management kind of things. Um, Instead of putting more money towards that, we're putting it towards, we're putting it towards, I don't know what we're putting it towards, tell you the truth. I don't know where it's going or what it's doing. I know there's little bits that go here and there, but I know that there's a lot of pockets that are getting lined
Mm.
with drug money,
You're
drug.
absolutely right. Big pharma in our country, they play a critical role in how we treat patients as medical professionals. And this is a statement that I'm sending directly from my friends who are nurses, who are doctors, who work in clinics. It is a firsthand experience because I've asked them. I just want to know, what do you think about the situation? They are being pushed to push certain drugs, and it breaks my heart that we as a society are willing and capable to do that to another
Yeah,
human being, and to tell a 19-year-old you need to be on these drugs for the rest of your life because you're
right,
broken.
right,
No, just a little bent, and we can recover.
right.
If we don't preach a positive message, we'll never be at a positive point in life.
Yeah, and this kid was a healthy kid. He wasn't a kid that looked like, he didn't have any teeth and he was homeless, and he was a healthy, normal kid, you know. So, and I remember getting calls when there was this major push to, I'm going to shut off my thing from here because I just heard a ding on me. Um, there was this major push to, and there still is, to push Suboxone and methadone, because and here's the scare tactic, because if they don't take it, they'll die, because they have stats that show people who went into the emergency room and overdosed, that after they left, if they weren't on Suboxone, they died.
Mm.
Well, what they don't have, and the reason why I wrote Chem-Free Sobriety, was they don't have stories about people who manage without it and what they need to do to stay sober. And there's all kinds of different ways in there. I mean, it's not just one way. There's different kinds of ways. So yeah, I think we're heading down a scary path. I think that this society is, it's just one drug after the other. I mean, they're making millions and millions off of sick people. They don't make money off well people,
No, a patient healed is a customer lost in that sense.
Yes, yes, that's good.
And that's why I really do enjoy having conversations and listening to medical experts and professionals like yourself who have experience in this, because you're not in that business of doing that. You're in the business of actually helping people. And that gives me hope. Me personally, I try to be a positive, hopeful person, because I do know there are so many powerful ways we can fight addiction. I have friends who have suffered through many different types of addiction. And they are recovering actively through fitness, through art, through music, through learning how to play an instrument. It can literally heal the soul. Music is definitely soul food, and I love it. By instead of drinking a bunch of alcohol, drink a bunch of water and be a bodybuilder. I have a bunch of bodybuilder friends who don't touch alcohol, and they don't need to, because they're happy with how they feel. They don't have body dysmorphia. A lot of times I've experienced my personal friends and even myself at times looking to heal how I feel by using different substances. And that substance might be just going outside and hitting and chopping a bunch of wood all day because I'm just mad at the world and I'm trying to find a positive outlet. And that's a positive outlet, but it doesn't have to be me going to the bar I have beside my house and smashing a bunch of drinks because I've had a quote unquote bad day. I haven't had a bad day. There are highs and lows in every single day. And I should learn to, I've been practicing learning to appreciate every moment of it.
Right. I hear you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to, I was thinking of this. The Kindle book is uploaded and on there. I don't know if the paperback made it up yet. They're reviewing it. So it is on Amazon. The Kindle is there. You have to plug in parents, addicted children, and hope. I don't know how else you plug it in to find it, but that's the name of the book, and that's how you have to plug it in. So
I'll make sure to put a link in the description of the video.
Yeah, that is uploaded. Chem-Free Sobriety and Goddess and the Addict is for the first 90 days of recovery. It's everything I wish I knew when I was first sober. But it's stuff I found out along the way, and that's a great book too. Someone was telling me not too long ago, she was using it down the Cape to, she was working with some girls and using it with the girls they must be new in sobriety. I don't know.
Well, knowledge is a very powerful tool, and for all of us, we have this ability to be natural leaders. So no matter what experience we have, we can lead in one way, shape, or form. Not everybody's a good leader, but if you put out positive, good, healthy information, the people will grasp onto it, because we long for that as human beings. We long for experiences that will rock our world. We long for the John Wick movies that break our mind, and we don't or the Avatar movies. We long for that groundbreaking cultural change, like Harry Potter was for me when I was a little kid. We, as adults, that kind of might change gears to what tools do I have, like I said before, on my tool belt, and can I pass this tool to for somebody else to use until they get their own tool. Knowledge is essential, and how we share it is very important. And I think you're doing an amazing job of sharing knowledge and experience, not just of your own, but of others. And it's definitely needed in today's society.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but everybody knows somebody that uh, has a mother, or that knows a mother that their son or daughter is struggling. And the good thing about this book is, Parents, Addicted Children, and Hope, is that it really can work for any age, really. It doesn't have to be a teenager. I tried to gear it towards, from what I found, was the majority of the places that I interviewed, I kept saying, who calls your place the most? And it's mostly mothers. So I'm assuming that's who's going to read it most. I'm hoping fathers do. I remember I did an intervention on a kid who, the father said, asked me if I had read this book, Beautiful Boy, I think it was. And I hadn't read it, but it was cool because the guy, was doing some research. He was trying to find answers to what's going on with my son.
Mm.
He did wind up getting into treatment, which was good. And from what I understand, I haven't connected with him in a while, but last I knew, he was doing well.
That's
Um,
excellent.
yeah. So treatment works and interventions work. I talk about interventions in that book, in the parents' book. So between the three books, and I've been working on another book for a long time, a daily meditation, devotional type thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to have it for people in recovery, or just general. I'm a pretty devout Christian, so it's very God-centered. So, sometimes, unfortunately, I had this woman one time who, she couldn't get sober. She was on Facebook, couldn't get sober. And I said, why don't you try reading this book? And she goes, um, I'm a Satan worshiper. I had never heard that before in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh. Of course, I unfriended her because I don't want that in my life,
Mhm.
Um, for me, I don't want that in my life.
Yeah,
But
and we can all set healthy boundaries of what we do and we do not enjoy in our lives, and it's healthy to do that. I'm big on healthy boundaries.
right. So there's a touch um of uh I usually I try to connect with God whenever I write a book. So because I realize it's not all about me. I'm not doing all the work, that I have that connection, that inspiration to move me forward, because left to my own devices, I don't think I could push myself that hard. Um, and I was thinking, when you asked me in the beginning of our conversation, you asked about my childhood, and somehow with the book. When I was like, I think I was like, I think I was like 8. I was writing poetry, and we had talked to Random House about publishing it, me and a friend of mine, and I don't know whatever happened with it. I wound up moving up to New Hampshire, and he was down there. And last I heard, he got murdered out in California. So I have no idea where the poetry is, but it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to write my whole life, even though, things were crazy at home, and my time using and drinking. That was always in my mind to do that. So there'll be more. There'll be more. I don't know when. It's a lot of work, but
Yes, absolutely. It takes time to articulate your message. It takes time to refine something you want to get across to people. I get told all the time that I'm a okay speaker, and I say
yeah,
I don't feel like I'm an okay speaker, but I'm working on refining how I present my message, how I get things across to others. I want the things I say to resonate with someone else on a different level, on a damn near spiritual level, because it's not my lessons that I'm sharing, it's lessons of those around me. And the knowledge that you're sharing with me today is going to contribute to my next episode and my next interaction with another person on the street
right,
suffering
right.
from addiction. I can recommend them your book. I can talk to another parent about and send them your way about your books, because I'm not a parent who has a child who's suffering, who's struggling in the battle of addiction. I'm not that. I don't have that experience. I can probably write a book about being a friend and being a son who's had
Right,
family members struggle with addiction, but I
right.
cannot not a parent. I don't have that experience.
That
You
would
said
be a good
something
book.
that it would be interesting. I mean, we might have to collab and figure something.
I'd
I'll
have to
write some
talk
stuff
about
down,
that. Yeah.
figure something out. And we definitely should. And I try to keep my word. I would love to share a personal experience of what it's like. Um,
Yeah. And
hide beers and shoes in the garage because you think that that's the problem when he just has post traumatic stress disorder. And yeah, no child is a doctor that could
right,
diagnose issues,
right,
but we
right,
think it's just alcohol because that's what society says.
right.
There's so much that goes into it. One thing you did bring up is that um she might not have been able to like kind of latch on to your book because she doesn't have the same religious beliefs as you. I've noticed something really phenomenal when people who don't practice Christianity tap into lessons from the Bible, lessons from someone who is a devout Christian. There is so
Yeah.
much you can take away from if you just look at the message without a pre-planned notion of how you're going to receive it. Remove the filters, remove the lens of not racial lens, but the religious lens, and look at this and what the message is. Loving your neighbor, being your brother's keeper, respecting your family members. If anything, use the Bible as a foundation of how you want to build your household. You might not catch every lesson. You might not be able to grasp the concept of not seeing to believe, but you can take something away from almost everything you experience in life. And I definitely lean on the Bible heavily when it comes to lessons I share with others. I might not quote Psalms, in chapters, and I don't quote exact scripture, but I can deliver a lesson to someone who does worship Satan just to, walk in love, care about someone else next to you, talk to your neighbor, ask them how their family is, wish them well. If you're not going to pray for them, it's okay. You don't have to. I'll do that for them, but you can think and wish them well. And that sending that energy, it's pretty close to what we got going on over here. So, you know what? A lot of people might be closer to religion than they believe.
I think I was too scared. I'm like, oh my God. I want to tell you that I was thinking when we were first talking that you do have like a radio voice.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I've done voiceovers as a child. I did acting. I did a whole lot of public speaking growing up. I counted through I stopped when I got to my senior year of high school, but I did over 100 presentations, in front of my class. I've always been able to, if you can explain something to me, I can give a speech about it on the spot. I won't
Wow.
do a good job, but I'll do an okay job. And okay is good enough sometimes. Okay
Right.
is good enough. So I
Right.
appreciate the compliment.
Yeah. Narrators. You can be a narrator on Audible.
Yeah. Yes. I've had it brought up to me a couple times.
Well, then,
Actually, in the process of a gentleman wanted me to work with him on a documentary of his life about how you don't need to try to be somebody or not. You don't need to put off a idea of being in the streets when you're not in the streets, because there's
right,
nothing great about poverty, violence, crime, and
right,
drug addiction. There's nothing positive about it.
right. And speaking of that, God is in the Attic is all about that. It's all about, bringing your gift to the world. I mean, too many people who struggle with alcohol and other drugs don't don't even know who they are,
Mm.
and so getting into recovery is about, letting go of the past and really nourishing who you were meant to be, who you were, why you're here on the planet, but it
Yes.
also has a whole chapter on sleep hygiene because you know I know my first 2 months of sobriety where I didn't sleep much. Plus I was drinking a lot of coffee and staying
Mhm.
awake late and doing a lot,
Yeah.
so
Being alive but not living is something that I think is something that a lot of people in America are addicted to.
right,
So having
right,
dreams, goals, aspirations, things you want to accomplish, and letting them sit is very dangerous because water, when it sits there for a while, gets kind of moldy. You know that you get that funk, the swamp bog shows up, algae. Next thing you know, you got a bunch of bugs living in your dreams. And how great is it that you're tapping into your goal of affecting other people on a different level, on a level of mental health, a level of physical health, a level of how they look at themselves. So, looking at yourself as a human being that's broken versus bent is an essential shift that I think needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen for
right.
us to move forward as a society. And I really love that you're doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think
Absolutely.
I think that if people, can, really take the information and implement it into their lives, they can get better. Whichever book they choose, Uh,
Yes.
the one for parents, I I just I would get calls from, family members, because when we were doing treatment, we didn't have time to deal with family. There was one treatment center that I worked at years ago. Everybody we worked with, we had to have a family meeting and work with the family. I wish every treatment center would do that, because
Absolutely.
when you leave them out of the mix, I think you said it earlier too, is we affect other people. Yeah, you were talking about your friend with the boots thing there. I think you were talking about,
Mhm.
and maybe it was before that, just about how, we don't just affect ourselves, we affect every other people that are in our life, the community.
Yes.
So, um, so I don't know where I was going with that, but
It's definitely essential. It's definitely essential. I can agree with you 110%.
yeah,
Being able to affect everybody is important. Having a tribe support you once you leave treatment is essential. If you are going through addiction and you go into a rehab facility of some sort or some treatment facility, whatever facility, and you come back, your family is going to be looking at you, hoping for something different. But in all reality, they've been living and dealing with something that's the
right,
same, right?
exactly.
They don't know you've changed. They don't know how to deal with you. It's very similar to, and I hope I don't catch too much flack for saying this. It's very similar from revisiting somebody you haven't seen in years, a friend that you don't know.
Yes,
You don't know
yeah,
if they're still doing the same thing, and the family member is going to have their guard up. They're not going to know if they can trust you. You're not going to know if you can trust them because addiction does alter the brain. Substance abuse makes you trust people less. Doing on the outside looking in, you're going to trust them less. You have to kind of find that new syncing up, right? It's like, um, yeah, that's a good way to say it. This resyncing up with your family, and it takes time. There's no, step by step. This is exactly how you deal with this situation because every situation is different. How nice is
right.
it that you put out some content that helps people have, at least somewhat of an idea?
Yeah, so one of the chapters is called is reintegration. So if their child does go to treatment, what's it going to be like when they come home? There has to be a plan,
Hmm.
and so giving them suggestions on what should be included in that plan, you know, and
Yes.
especially boundaries with them, you know.
Boundaries, very, very important things.
And some people don't realize, well, they're not all better after they get out of treatment. It takes years. Years. If they have to go to treatment, that's a higher level of care. When they come home, it's going to take a long time for them to change. And what's interesting is the expectations. The parents think they're the same kid, and everything's going to be fine. And the kid thinks, why can't they trust me? Well, if you've been lying, cheating, and stealing from them for a long time, it's going to take a long time for them to trust you.
Yes. And
Uh,
and I love your books, and I love the message behind it, because it's reminding people to give themselves and others some grace. The power of doing that is it's unmeasurable. You cannot put a price tag or a ruler up next to someone else's independent and also integrated with their family growth. And I don't think there's any way to measure that. There's no quantum way to look at that from in any analytical standpoint. It's kind of a box you check. Are you working towards being better, or are you not? It's one of those absolute things, but there's no really gauge on how you heal.
right, right. I have to ask you, are you able to, I know you said there was like eight channels or something,
Hmm?
but have you identified who your audience is, who mostly watches your show?
Yes. It's from this whole region of the United States. I have some in Spain, a lot in the Middle East, surprisingly. I don't speak the same dialect usually over there, but definitely some in Europe. I have it's very spread out pretty evenly with men and women across the board. But it's really great. And I can all when we're done with this, I'll send you some of the numbers, but it's really amazing that the numbers are actively always changing. I'll have some episodes, I'll do an episode with a domestic violence survivor, and you would be terrified and shocked at how many we would generally think this idea of who are our normal people who talk about being a domestic violence survivor. It's the bravest among us, which is our ladies. A lot of men will never speak up. I have
Right.
more men listeners for domestic violence survivor episodes than women listeners. So it's really interesting to be able to observe this, and
Right.
I have episodes that are anonymous. So people can come on anonymously. That's one of the things that I offer here.
Nice.
I have so it's completely anonymous. You don't have to feel like you're going to be judged by the world, but if you have something you want to get off your chest, you can still come on. And that is very interesting as well, because I I know who these people are. I've served with in the military with some of them. I've sat next to this individual in a prestigious moment, ranking up in the military. Little did I know they were going through hell at home, and
Mm.
and how they power through that is what's really great. And I love stories of power. Yours is a story of power for sure. It's not easy to look at your parents and for guidance, deal with them um on a certain path, and then obviously congratulations to your dad for a life of sobriety. That's awesome. After when you turn 16, you were looking to him for guidance, and he is able to go through this pathway as you are. And now you, for your daughter, you're able to guide her through this pathway of healing and living life and loving life. More importantly, I think
Right.
that's very, very powerful.
Right. Somebody's got to break the chain.
Yes, yes,
There's
absolutely.
a lot of domestic violence folks, they live what they learn. They learn what they live, whatever, however that goes.
It goes both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think we wind up with people, you know, uh, not always, but sometimes we wind up where we're at, you know,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
was, I said that to my sister in Greece. I said something like, we're close to where we are. She's like, what? I don't know what we were talking about, but it didn't sound right when I said it. But like alcoholism, women who were raised in an alcoholic home typically will marry an alcoholic and will get divorced, you know. the stats are pretty high for that. So, I just think that we get pulled into an area that we're comfortable, that's what we know, and we just live it. We never get out of it until we see something different. And that's what I'm hoping for with all of these books, is that people see something different. We got to break these chains. We got to stop these overdoses. This is not something that has to happen. And if we can train our kids up to know something different, they don't have to pick up a drink or a drug at all. They don't have to change the way they feel or the way they think. Like you were saying, I can go chop wood instead. I don't have to follow whoever down the road. There's a whole chapter on prevention in there too. Before I was a counselor, I actually did some prevention work, workshops for parents, and there's certain things to look out for. And I know my kids actually don't even, they grew up with me being sober, but and just saying whatever was on my mind, but they don't know, and I didn't know then what I know now. I know more now than I did then, but the seeing it in writing, I don't know, there's something magical about seeing it in writing. I can't remember where I heard this, that I said, should I be doing audiobooks? Because I did audiobooks for those other two books, and I was thinking, they oh, was somebody at Amazon at where you upload your books? And he's like, people still really love having that book in their hand. And when I talk to people I know that read, I like having that book in my hand. I like having it to pick up as a reference. So I just think there's magic in words. I think that we see it differently versus, like I said, my kids grew up with it, but when they see it, actually, my husband and I have 5 kids together. I told you how big my family was. Maybe I got that from my father. But when they see it, I think it'll be different. I think when they read the content, they'll be able to help. My daughter has 4 kids. My son has 3 kids. And our other kids, my husband's kids, one of them is having a baby. The other 2 want babies. So
I love it.
Yeah. So there's going to be a whole lot of kids growing up, and having these tools for them. I'm hoping they all read it and are able to have that knowledge stored.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Well, I'm a big reader as well. I grew up being severely dyslexic, but I'll tell you what, the best cure for that is to just read each page twice. And that's what I usually do. You can see right now, I'm holding up my highlighters. When I read, I highlight the living life out of everything. Anything that stands out to me that I really need to remember. I have my own breakdown process of how important things are by how I highlight them, what category of my life that would help with the podcasting, with being a better husband, with giving myself some grace, being a friend to myself is a huge thing. I've often looked to my friends to help raise me up, and they don't always have the tools for that. It's time to look inwards more often than I'd care to admit, and be better with my own intent. How do I want to be perceived? Like today, I had a difficult day dealing with one of my mistakes as a husband and a friend to my wife, because before anything else, I'm meant to be her best friend. I want to be kind to her and help her.
Right.
I failed severely in one capacity, and I looked at myself and I said, okay, well, how can we get better? And so I took on the time to think all day, and driving home thinking about how can I be better, and I'm going to apply it actively. And it's simple stuff like that, but the standout messages in text are the best. Just like you brought up, having something tangible right in front of your face. It's black and white. There's no question about what's been It's exactly what it says. You can read it 100 times. It's going to sound 100 times the same way. Just get the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not alone. I circle, highlight, write things that I want to remember when I look at it again.
Mm-hmm. I just practiced it. I was practicing last week how my angry scribbles. When I don't want to remember something, I just scribble it out angrily because it frustrates me. So some simple practices to try to remember things about being better in general.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I love what your books represent. I love the message behind them. I really just had one question that's really sticking to me when you started talking about this. What is the first thing you would say to any parent? Because your book is about parents dealing with children who are suffering, struggling through addiction, and how to transverse this crazy thing called life. No one has a book, but now they might, right? What is one thing you would say to a parent who just found out that their child is struggling severely with addiction, and they're kind of scared because they don't feel that they have the tools to fix it? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would definitely talk to someone in the profession. There's addiction professionals all over the place, and they're popping up everywhere, but especially early on is the best time to talk to somebody. But you can also talk to your kid, and I talk about informal interventions as well, sitting down with them and just when you don't think they're using, and just saying, you've been acting different lately. Do you want to talk about it? One of the guys in the book says he wished his parents said to him, "You smelt like alcohol and weed." I wish I could say it the way he says it. I might not get this exactly. We need to talk.
Mm.
Wished his parents said that to him, so, and the thing is, most people who abuse drugs or alcohol, and they can't stop, they don't want to be doing it, but some of them might not know how to stop. They may not, you know, when I was raising my kids, a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes, I remember my daughter asked me to go to this party. Everybody's going to be there, blah, 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 all this stuff. And the more I looked into it, I'm like, this doesn't sound very good. And I told her she couldn't go. And for some reason, I don't think I was able to talk to the parent. And afterwards, she told me, she said, I'm glad you told me I couldn't go. She needed me to be the one to say no. And so sometimes we need to be the bad guys so that our kids can be free. But I think it's about talking to them. It's about, and if you don't know how to talk to them, then I would get somebody that you can talk to about that we have in New Hampshire. I don't know, each state is different, but we have a 211 number that you can call, and there's addiction hotline. I would imagine that most places have it. SAMHSA, SAMSHA. SAMHSA is a government website where they have treatment locators, and that's national. So, but usually, in every country they have something where, whether it's anonymous or not, I mean, but you could always call an addiction center and just say, can I talk to somebody real quick? This is my concern. A lot of times we used to get those calls all the time. What about this? What about that? And then, it's a 5-minute conversation. If it's a lot longer, they might have to come in, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I definitely appreciate your insight. I appreciate your answer. I think that was one of the most powerful answers that could have been given. You could have told me go talk to God. You could have told me to self reflect as a parent, or you could have told me to talk to my neighbor because I brought that out up earlier. But you told me different answers because there's not one way to solve any issue. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. I don't skin cats, so I really can't speak on them.
That's a weird statement, isn't it? It's like,
I
why?
know I definitely never skinned a cat, but
Cats, anyways. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I'm allergic to cats. I stay away from them. But there's so much value in what you said. Um, I definitely look forward to personally, sitting down and reading these books and reflecting with my litany of highlighters. And I hope I don't think I'm gonna have to scribble anything out. I think for the first time, this is gonna be something that seriously plays a role in the future of how I do this series. Recovery is something that's very important to me. I have dear friends of mine who have been recovering from really, really low points in their life for a while. And I can't wait to share this episode specifically with them because they're becoming parents and they're nervous. Oh, what's going to happen? I think this is huge. This is a healing point we can all come to. And I'm personally excited to read your new book. It's released tomorrow morning, March 13th, I believe, correct?
Well, it's actually, where are we? What day is it? The 13th. Today is the 13th.
Yes.
Online right now.
It's online right now.
Yeah. The Kindle book. I would imagine the paperback is going to be either tonight or tomorrow morning.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure to be posting links in the description so that everybody can grab that. And when I put it up on the Facebook page and all the other pages on Instagram and across the board, that it's also linked in there as well. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining me. I know it's late and you've been time traveling across from Greece to back here. So thank you for contributing so much to these conversations we have here on Off the Deep End. And I definitely look forward to talking with you again after I read the book and after we can have a more in-depth conversation about this, because it's something I'm very passionate about. You're obviously passionate about it after 20 years in the industry of helping heal people. So I absolutely love it. And I appreciate your time so very much.
All right. Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you to all my listeners. This has been another episode of Off the Deep End Podcast. If you love what Miss Suzanne was talking about, be sure to check the links in the description and let's get these books and just have a gander. Let's have this conversation keep going on our Facebook page like we always do. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you so much to my listener support. Enough waffling for me. Bye-bye.
Before we get started today, I want to say thank you for every single like, comment, recommendation, and a very special thank you to my listener support group. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End Podcast, please consider checking out the listener support tab on our channel's anchor link. Without you, we would not be able to continue the great work we're doing with these conversations, breaking down boundaries and helping heal each other by sharing our stories, our trials, our tribulations, and how we process them. Let's jump straight into this episode.